We are absolutely drowning in information, right? So you have to wonder, with all this knowledge at our fingertips, why does it so often feel like we're just stuck? Well, today we're going to explore that exact journey. The tough one from the safety of the library to the chaos of the real-world battlefield. This is the path from just knowing to truly doing. So let's just start with a really direct question. Think about it. We read the books, we take the courses, we watch the videos, we absorb all this data. So why is it that when that critical moment actually arrives, our progress so rarely seems to match our level of understanding? What is going on there? You know, the biggest trick our brain plays on us is making us think these two things are the same. But they're not even close. Knowledge is abstract, it's clean. It lives up in the logical part of our brain, the neocortex, as just concepts and data. But wisdom is completely different. It's embodied. It's that deep, gut-level understanding that only happens when an idea travels from your head down into your body and gets tested by real, messy experience. Okay, so why do so many of us get stuck in that library of knowledge, just endlessly collecting books and certificates? Well, it all starts with this incredibly powerful and completely false sense of security. See, our brains are literally hardwired to hate the unknown. Uncertainty, to our ancient brain, signals danger. So when we get anxious or feel out of our depth, what's our first instinct? We retreat to the library, right? We buy another book, sign up for another course, because gathering more information feels like we're regaining control over the chaos. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. This kind of learning isn't really about preparing for action. It's a defense mechanism. We're using books and lectures not as tools to build with, but as a shield to protect us from the fear of not being good enough to actually step out onto the battlefield. And that just lays bare a raw truth, doesn't it? We build this fortress of paper around ourselves and hide inside it because the real world, with its very real risk of failure and judgment, is just terrifying. Knowledge stops being a tool for engagement and becomes our favorite hiding place. And of course, there's a powerful neurochemical reason we get so addicted to this loop. Every time you learn something new, your brain gives you a little hit of dopamine, the pleasure hormone. It feels good. It feels like you're making progress. But here's the great deception. On a chemical level, your brain really can't tell the difference between the satisfaction of understanding a problem and the satisfaction of actually solving it. The thrill you get from reading a book about running a marathon feels suspiciously similar to the thrill of finishing your first 5K. And what's the result? You feel accomplished, but your muscles haven't grown one bit. It's this dangerous loop of feeling good without ever having to do good. So if just hoarding knowledge is a trap, how in the world do we escape? Well, the path forward is not comfortable, and you definitely won't find it in another seminar. No, it requires a complete breakdown of the self that you thought you knew. The psychologist Kazimierz Dombrowski had this radical idea. He basically said that you cannot truly grow if your old mental framework doesn't shatter first. Real wisdom demands immense pressure, and that pressure comes directly from two things: adversity and failure. Let's see how this actually works. Imagine you're a manager, you've read all the latest leadership books, you believe deeply in the power of praise, you're using all the right techniques, and you're totally confident in your model of how motivation works. And then reality hits. Your star employee resigns, and during the exit interview, they tell you your praise always felt hollow and insincere, corporate. In that one moment, the entire worldview you so carefully built from all those books just collapses. That intense psychological pain you feel, that has a name: cognitive dissonance. Your brain is basically screaming because a belief you cherished has just collided head-on with a brutal, contradictory reality. And right here, you're at a fork in the road. You can protect your ego, blame the ungrateful employee, or you can accept the painful truth that your model of the world is broken. Neuroscience actually has a term for this. It's called a prediction error. Your brain predicted an outcome, my praise will lead to motivation, and reality delivered the exact opposite. Now, this error signal is physically uncomfortable, but wisdom is the courageous act of using that pain to update your brain's internal algorithm, instead of just trying to hide from it. Now, if you want to see what happens when someone consistently refuses to update their algorithm, let's look at the cautionary tale of a man named Huang, a true intellectual monster. So, meet Huang. He was hired as a savior. I mean, the resume was perfect. An MBA from the UK, top-tier consulting background, and he came armed with a vocabulary full of all the latest buzzwords. His mission? To lead the digital transformation of a very traditional retail company. His time there followed this tragic but predictable arc. First, he dazzled everyone with his sophisticated models. Then, he retreated to his ivory tower, managing by spreadsheets and ignoring the messy reality on the ground. When an experienced sales manager tried to warn him that his new app was way too complex for the field staff, Huang didn't just ignore him, he dismissed him, blaming the man's mindset. And, of course, it all came crashing down. Sales plummeted, and his best people quit. And this was Huang's reaction to the catastrophic failure. Instead of accepting the painful data from reality, he doubled down. He delivered a brilliant 50-slide presentation using complex theories to prove one single thing. He wasn't wrong. The people were wrong. You see? He used his incredible knowledge not as a tool for learning, but as a weapon to defend his own ego. This just perfectly illustrates his fatal flaw. He was an absolute expert on the 10% of the iceberg that's visible above the water. You know, the strategy, the processes, the technology. But he was completely sunk by the massive, unseen 90% that lies beneath the surface. The real human stuff, the culture, the emotions, the politics, and the fears that actually drive an organization. Huang's story is such a powerful warning about the path of arrogance. But thankfully, there is another way, the path of humility. So let's talk about how we can choose that path instead. This journey from intellect to wisdom is really a shift from what psychologists call fluid intelligence to crystallized intelligence. Now, fluid intelligence, which is common when we're young, is all about rapidly acquiring new knowledge, just adding more and more. But crystallized intelligence, the true hallmark of wisdom, is a process of subtraction. It's like sculpting. You don't add more clay, you carefully carve away everything that's not essential to reveal the core truth that was hidden inside. And you'll know you're on this path when your internal priorities start to shift. You just stop needing to win every argument. You start to see failure not as a personal judgment, but as precious data for your next attempt. You find yourself speaking less because you're more focused on being effective than just being heard. And maybe most importantly, you develop more compassion because you remember all the painful mistakes you had to make to learn what you now know. And that brings us to our final, maybe provocative takeaway. Your next step toward growth isn't in another book. True wisdom is waiting for you, but it's on the other side of your comfort zone. It's on the battlefield of real application, real risk, and yes, real pain. The challenge, then, is to stop just accumulating knowledge and instead find the courage to go out and live and maybe even hurt a little with what you already know.